Most parents have been told that some kids are just naturally bright. That smart is something you're either born with or you're not. That a toddler's place in the classroom, the kid who learns quick, who speaks first, who picks things up faster than the rest, is mostly a matter of genetics and luck. But the truth is something pediatric researchers and child development specialists have been quietly piecing together for the last 20 years, and it is changing the way we should think about the first 3 years of a child's life. The toddler brain is not waiting to be born smart. It is actively, hungrily, dramatically building itself in real time, at a speed it will never come close to again. And the single most powerful input shaping that construction is not preschool, not flashcards, not screen time, not music lessons. It is food. The specific, nutrient-dense, brain-building foods that go into a toddler between the ages of 1 and 3 are quite literally the raw materials his or her brain is using to wire itself together. And the wiring that gets built in those years is the wiring the child will carry into the classroom, into reading, into math, into every social interaction for the rest of their life. The wild part is that the foods that do this are not exotic. They are not expensive. They are not new. They are the same foods grandmothers and great-grandmothers were quietly feeding to their children long before anyone had ever heard the words DHA or choline. Today, I'm walking you through the exact 9 foods that quietly, consistently, dramatically build a faster, sharper, more focused toddler brain. The kind of brain that walks into a classroom 3 steps ahead of the room without anyone quite knowing why. Hit that subscribe button right now, because every week on this channel I post videos that put real, food-first solutions back into the hands of modern parents. The kind of wisdom the supplement industry hopes you'll forget. Stick around because number 4 on this list is a food that, by a strange coincidence of nature, actually looks like the very organ it builds. And number 1 is a food modern parents have almost entirely abandoned, even though pediatricians a century ago routinely prescribed it for children who needed a developmental boost, and the modern science has now caught up to explain exactly why it works. 9 foods, 3 of the most important years of your child's life. Let's get into it. Number 9. Wild blueberries, the smallest brain food on the list and possibly the most consistently studied. Wild blueberries are smaller, darker, and significantly more nutrient-dense than the larger cultivated blueberries most parents buy from the produce section. They have been growing in the cool forests of North America for thousands of years, and indigenous communities use them not just as food, but as a kind of medicine, given to children, the elderly, and the sick to support energy, recovery, and clear thinking. And here's what makes this remarkable. Modern researchers studying wild blueberries have found that they contain extraordinary concentrations of compounds called anthocyanins, the deep purple-blue pigments that give the berries their color. Multiple studies have linked anthocyanin consumption to improved memory, faster information processing, and better focus in both children and adults. Most people miss this, but the form matters enormously. Anthocyanins are concentrated in the skin of the berry, which means smaller berries, with more skin per ounce, actually deliver dramatically more of the active compound than larger cultivated berries do. Frozen wild blueberries, which retain almost all of their original anthocyanin content, are often a more potent option than what's available fresh in most supermarkets. Here's the practical magic for the toddler brain. Anthocyanins have been shown in clinical research to support healthy blood flow to the brain. A child whose brain is receiving steady, oxygen-rich blood flow during the years of fastest neural development is, quite literally, building more efficient wiring than a child whose blood flow is being held back by inflammation and a low-nutrient diet. A small handful of wild blueberries stirred into yogurt, blended into a smoothie, or mashed into oatmeal a few times a week delivers a meaningful, measurable amount of brain-supporting compounds in a food toddlers actually want to eat. Number 8. Pumpkin seeds, finely ground, the tiny mineral vault that traditional cultures fed to growing children for centuries. Across the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and the ancient Americas, mothers passed down the practice of saving pumpkin seeds from harvest season, specifically to feed to children through the long winters, when fresh food was scarce and small bodies needed something dense and warming to make it through. They did not have laboratory analyses. They just knew children grew stronger, sharper, and more resilient when these seeds were on the table. And modern science has finally caught up to what those mothers already knew. Pumpkin seeds are one of the most mineral-dense foods on Earth, delivering generous amounts of zinc, magnesium, iron, and healthy fats in every single ounce. Each of these minerals plays a specific, documented role in brain development. Zinc is required for the formation of new neural connections, the literal wiring of the brain between neurons. Magnesium supports the calming side of the nervous system, helping a toddler regulate stress, sleep more deeply, and recover from the relentless stimulation of the world around them. Iron carries oxygen to the brain, and a toddler running low on iron is a toddler whose brain is, in effect, oxygen-starved during the most metabolically demanding years of its development. Here's what stops people in their tracks. Pumpkin seeds deliver all three of these in the same bite. They are not feeding one part of the brain, they are feeding the foundation of how the brain builds itself. The catch is that whole pumpkin seeds are a serious choking hazard for toddlers under 3, so they must be ground into a fine powder, blended into pumpkin seed butter, or stirred invisibly into oatmeal, yogurt, or smoothies. Prepared that way, they become one of the easiest, most powerful add-ons you can sneak into almost any meal. A small spoonful of forgotten wisdom hiding inside breakfast. Number 7. Lentils. The forgotten powerhouse of the toddler plate. Lentils are one of the oldest cultivated foods in human history, with evidence of their use stretching back more than 9,000 years across the Middle East, India, and the Mediterranean. In India, lentil-based dolls have been fed to babies and toddlers for thousands of years as their first introduction to solid protein, often cooked slowly with warming spices and a small amount of ghee. And there is a reason these cultures kept coming back to them. A half cup of cooked lentils contains roughly 3 milligrams of iron and a generous dose of folate, 2 nutrients that work together in ways that are quietly foundational to the toddler brain. Most people walk right past this, but iron and folate are both essential for the production of healthy red blood cells, which is how oxygen reaches the brain in the first place. A toddler with low iron or low folate is a toddler whose brain is fighting a daily battle to do its work on insufficient fuel. And this is where it gets really remarkable. Folate specifically has been studied extensively in modern pediatric research and linked to language development, attention, and cognitive performance in young children. Toddlers whose diets consistently include folate-rich foods like lentils, leafy greens, and beans tend to hit language milestones earlier, and with more vocabulary than toddlers whose diets are dominated by refined grains and processed snacks. Here's what most people get wrong with lentils. They serve them dry and plain and wonder why their toddler does not respond to them. Lentils contain natural compounds called phytates that can block iron absorption, which is exactly why traditional cultures soaked them overnight, sprouted them, or slow-cooked them with acidic ingredients like tomato or lemon. That single step, almost entirely lost in modern kitchens, can dramatically increase how much iron a small body actually pulls from the meal. A soft, well-cooked lentil stew with a squeeze of lemon, mashed into a soft texture for younger toddlers, is one of the most affordable, ancient, brain-supportive meals you can put in front of a child. Number 6. Avocado. The food the toddler brain is quietly built from. Avocados are one of the rare fruits that traditional Mesoamerican cultures considered specifically valuable for children. A food given to growing bodies because it was understood to support strength and steady development. Modern science has now confirmed why those traditions made sense. The toddler brain, between the ages of 1 and 3, is rapidly building something called the myelin sheath, a fatty, protective coating that wraps around every neuron and dramatically speeds up the rate at which signals travel through the brain. A well-myelinated brain is, quite literally, a faster brain. A toddler with strong myelination processes information more quickly, learns more efficiently, and responds to the world with sharper attention. And here is the key. Myelin is made almost entirely from fat. Specifically, the kind of healthy monounsaturated and saturated fats found in foods like avocado, egg yolks, full-fat dairy, and fatty fish. Most people miss this because modern parenting culture has spent the last 40 years telling parents to limit fat intake. a recommendation that was based on adult heart disease research and was never intended to apply to growing children. Toddlers who eat low-fat diets during the critical brain-building years are, in effect, being asked to construct a city without the bricks needed to build it. Avocado delivers some of the cleanest, most absorbable healthy fats available in any food, plus a generous dose of folate, potassium, and fiber. Mashed into oatmeal, spread on toast, blended into a smoothie, or simply scooped with a small spoon, half an avocado a few times a week gives a toddler the raw building material their brain is actively asking for. Before we get to the heavier hitters on this list, let me ask you something. Are you starting to see the pattern? Every food we've covered so far is doing more than one job. Iron and folate, zinc and magnesium, anthocyanins and healthy fats. The toddler brain is not built by hunting down one isolated nutrient at a time. It is built by feeding the body a steady, daily, intelligent rotation of whole, nutrient-dense foods that work together. That is the philosophy this channel is built on. It is the philosophy the supplement industry desperately hopes you will forget. If that resonates with you, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach other parents who are tired of the noise and want real, ancient, food-first wisdom they can actually use. And if you're not subscribed to Forgotten Herbal yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We post every week, and every video is built to put this kind of knowledge directly into the kitchens that need it most. All right, let's keep going. Number 5. Plain whole milk yogurt. The gut-brain axis hiding inside a small bowl. For most of human history, fermented dairy was one of the most important foods given to young children across nearly every continent. In rural Greece and the Caucasus and parts of India and the Middle East, traditional cultures fed yogurt, kefir, and other fermented dairy products to toddlers as a foundational food. And the children who grew up on it tended to be observably healthier, more resilient, and less prone to the digestive issues that plagued other populations. And modern science has now uncovered something extraordinary about why those traditions made sense. The human gut is now understood to be in constant, two-way conversation with the human brain through what researchers call the gut-brain axis. The bacteria living in a toddler's digestive system are not passive passengers. They actively produce neurotransmitters, including a meaningful percentage of the body's serotonin, that directly affect mood, focus, learning ability, and emotional regulation. Plain whole milk yogurt, the unsweetened kind with live cultures, delivers exactly the kinds of beneficial bacteria that support a healthy gut-brain connection in young children. Here's what makes this remarkable. Plain yogurt also delivers tyrosine, an amino acid that the brain uses to produce dopamine, the neurotransmitter most closely linked to motivation, attention, and the ability to focus on a task. A toddler whose diet consistently includes yogurt is feeding both sides of the equation: the bacteria that support emotional regulation and the amino acids that support sustained focus. The catch, though, is critical. Most yogurts marketed to toddlers in modern grocery stores are loaded with added sugar, sometimes more sugar per serving than a candy bar, which feeds the wrong kinds of gut bacteria and can dramatically reduce the brain benefits the yogurt was supposed to deliver. Plain, unsweetened, full-fat yogurt, sweetened at home with a small amount of fresh fruit or a touch of honey for toddlers over 12 months, is the form that delivers the actual benefit. Number 4. Walnuts finely ground. The food that, by a strange coincidence of nature, actually looks like the very organ it builds. If you cut a walnut in half, the inside looks remarkably like a tiny brain. Two hemispheres divided in the middle with deep folds and ridges. For centuries, traditional cultures across the Mediterranean and the Middle East noticed this resemblance and treated walnuts as a brain food long before anyone could explain why. And here is what makes this remarkable. Modern research has now confirmed that walnuts are, in fact, one of the most concentrated plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, which the body can convert into the longer-chain omega-3s that the toddler brain actively uses to build itself. The toddler brain is roughly 60% fat by weight, and a significant portion of that fat is omega-3. A toddler whose diet runs low in omega-3s is, in effect, missing key construction material during the years their brain is being built. Walnuts deliver that material in a form that toddlers can actually digest and absorb. Most people walk right past this, but walnuts also contain antioxidants and polyphenols that have been linked in research to reduced inflammation in the brain and better cognitive performance over time. Here's the practical magic. Whole walnuts are a serious choking hazard for toddlers under 4, so they must be ground into a fine powder or blended into walnut butter and stirred into oatmeal, yogurt, smoothies, or baked into soft muffins. A teaspoon of finely ground walnuts a few times a week gives the toddler brain a steady, ongoing supply of one of the most foundational fats it needs. The tradition that called walnuts brain food was not superstition. It was 3,000 years of careful observation arriving at exactly the right conclusion. Number 3. Eggs. Specifically, whole, soft-cooked eggs with the yolk intact. Egg yolks have been considered a sacred first food for babies and toddlers across nearly every traditional culture on Earth. In rural France, mothers fed babies soft-cooked egg yolks starting at 6 months. In Japan, the yolk was prized as one of the first solids introduced because of its richness and density. In Old World Jewish and Eastern European kitchens, the yolk was considered the strengthening part of the egg, the part you saved for the children. And there's a reason every one of these cultures arrived at the same conclusion independently. A single large egg yolk contains a generous amount of choline, vitamin D, vitamin B12, vitamin A, and brain-supporting fats. A combination that is almost impossible to find together in any other single food. Choline is the nutrient that most clearly separates an average toddler brain from an exceptionally well-developed one. It is the raw material the brain uses to build acetylcholine, the primary neurotransmitter for memory, learning, and focus. Research has consistently linked early life choline intake to measurably stronger memory, better attention, and faster learning in young children. Most parents miss this, though, because they have been serving eggs to their toddlers the exact wrong way. Scrambled hard, cooked until the yolk is dry and crumbly. Here's what most people get wrong. Overcooking the yolk damages those delicate fats and reduces the bioavailability of the very nutrients hiding inside it. Traditional cultures cooked the yolk softly, barely set, runny, or gently steamed, preserving the very compounds that made it worth feeding to a child in the first place. And this is where it gets really interesting. Pairing a soft yolked egg with a piece of fruit for vitamin C dramatically improves the absorption of the iron in the yolk, creating a complete brain-building meal from ingredients that have been sitting in refrigerators all along. One soft-cooked egg 3 or 4 times a week, served safely for the child's age and chewing ability, is one of the highest impact single foods you can put on a toddler plate. Number 2. Wild-caught salmon. The single most concentrated source of the fat the toddler brain is literally built from. The toddler brain is, again, roughly 60% fat by weight. And of all the different kinds of fat the human body uses, one specific molecule shows up more often in brain tissue than almost any other. DHA is the dominant structural fat in the developing brain, and it is concentrated almost exclusively in fatty cold water fish. Wild-caught salmon is one of the most concentrated, bioavailable, and clean sources of DHA available in any food on Earth. Multiple long-term studies have now linked early life DHA intake to measurable differences in cognitive performance, vocabulary development, and visual acuity in young children. Most people miss this completely. They assume that because adults are told to limit fish consumption due to mercury concerns, the same advice applies to toddlers. But pediatric guidance from major health organizations consistently recommends fatty fish like salmon as part of a toddler's regular diet. Typically wild-caught Pacific salmon, which is naturally low in mercury, 2 to 3 times a week. Here's what makes this remarkable. Traditional cultures along the coasts of Scandinavia, the Pacific Northwest, and parts of Japan have been feeding fatty fish to their children for thousands of years, and modern research is now finding measurably higher cognitive performance, faster brain development, and better vision in populations that maintain this practice. The form matters. Wild-caught salmon, gently baked, flaked into small pieces, mixed into rice or pasta, or simply served alongside vegetables, is the kind of meal that is genuinely transforming the architecture of a toddler's brain in real time. 2 small servings a week is enough to make a measurable difference. Number 1. Grass-fed beef liver, the single most complete brain-building food on earth, and the one modern parents have almost entirely forgotten. There was a time, not very long ago, when liver was considered one of the most precious foods a mother could feed her child. Across French, Italian, Jewish, Polish, and West African kitchens, liver was treated as medicine. Gently sautéed, blended into pâté, mashed into vegetables, or stirred into rice for babies and toddlers. Pediatricians a century ago routinely prescribed liver for children who were falling behind developmentally. And they did it because it worked, often within weeks. Most people walk right past this now. Liver has been quietly erased from the modern toddler plate, replaced by cereal bars and fruit pouches that contain a tiny fraction of its nutrient density. And the numbers are almost difficult to believe. A single small serving of cooked grass-fed beef liver delivers extraordinary amounts of choline, vitamin B12, iron, folate, vitamin A, and copper, every single one of which plays a documented role in toddler brain development. Choline for memory and learning, B12 for the formation of myelin, the protective coating that speeds up neural signaling, iron for oxygen delivery, folate for cognitive development, vitamin A for vision and brain function, copper for the production of neurotransmitters. There is no single multivitamin on Earth that delivers this exact combination in this exact bioavailable form. The supplement industry has spent decades trying to replicate what one small spoonful of beef liver delivers naturally. Here's what makes this remarkable. Multiple traditional cultures arrived at the same conclusion independently, that liver was the single most strengthening food you could give a small child, long before anyone could measure a microgram of any of those compounds. They were not guessing. They were watching their children grow strong, sharp, and quick on it, and the modern lab work has only confirmed what those kitchens already knew. The simplest way to introduce liver to a toddler is gently. A small amount of grass-fed beef liver, sautéed with butter and onion, blended smooth into a soft pâté, and stirred into mashed potato, sweet potato, or a simple rice dish, is virtually undetectable to most children. Start with a teaspoon. Build slowly. Because liver is high in vitamin A, it should be served in modest amounts. Once or twice a week is plenty. But those small servings can shift a toddler's developmental trajectory faster than almost any other food in existence. This is the food modern parents forgot, and it may be the single most powerful thing on this list. 9 foods. 3 of the most important years of your child's life. One thread connecting all of them. None of these foods are trendy, none of them are expensive, and none of them are new. They are the same foods that quietly built generations of bright, focused, capable children long before anyone had a single pediatric supplement to reach for. Wild blueberries in a small bowl. Ground pumpkin seeds stirred into yogurt. Soft, slow-cooked lentils with lemon. Mashed avocado on toast. Plain whole milk yogurt with fresh fruit. Finely ground walnuts and oatmeal. Soft cooked eggs with the yolk intact. Wild-caught salmon, flaked gently. And the one almost everyone has forgotten. Grass-fed beef liver, blended smooth and hidden inside a meal your toddler will never know contain the single most complete brain food on Earth. The toddler food industry will always push you toward a brightly colored pouch, a cereal bar, a chewable vitamin, a fortified snack. Because pouches are profitable, and a small bowl of liver pâté blended with sweet potato is not. The parents and grandparents who raised some of the brightest, most capable generations in human history did not have any of that. They had the kitchen, the seasons, and a quiet body of knowledge passed down through hands and stovetops. They were not behind the times, they were paying attention. One important note before you go. Always check with your pediatrician before making significant changes to your toddler's diet, especially if your child has any allergies, sensitivities, or existing health concerns. Every child is different, and the right introduction matters as much as the food itself. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which one you're trying first. Are you team salmon and walnuts for the omega-3 brain build? Team eggs and avocado for the everyday ingredient overhaul? Or Team liver pate for the boldest, most ancient food-first move on the list? I read every comment. And if you got something out of this video, hit the like button and subscribe to Forgotten Herbal, where